All right, guys, we just wrapped up a 100-mile plus fun day riding around all over on the Harley Sportster. Haven't been on it for a whole day of riding in a while, and there's a lot of stuff I forgot about this bike that I'm going to tell you about. Alright everybody, what is up? As always, thanks for stopping by to another video today. We are out on a wet one this afternoon. We just had a bunch of rain come in and disrupt this nice little ride, this nice little day we had going on the 2019 Harley Sportster this afternoon. So I am currently out right now roaming around, where are we? I would say the Brandywine area, Southeastern PA. So this would be west of the city. If anyone's familiar with like Chaz Ford, Kennett Square, Brandywine area, that is where we are currently. We took a nice little ride this morning outside of the city. Ended up going out to Chaz Ford Winery, hit a couple other little markets, coffee shops, fun stuff, all that cool stuff. It was about a little over 50 miles out, and then we are headed back in now. We're probably a quarter of the way in, and we just kind of started our journey back into the city. We're going to take kind of the back way, similar route that we came out. It was pretty nice roads all the way out here. Some twists and turns, some visual sights, some good scenery here, trees, some hills, some farms, all that good stuff. But of course, like I mentioned, we are on the Harley Iron 1200, the Sportster, of course, and I kind of feel bad because, not that I've been neglecting the Sportster, but I've just been doing a lot of riding lately on the Street Bob. So you guys obviously know I have a 2022 Harley Davidson Softail Street Bob 114. I just absolutely love that bike, man. I'm obsessed with that thing. Like the handling, the power, the weight, it's just so much fun to ride. I just did like a over 800-mile trip across the state of PA on that thing. It held up perfectly. So that's probably, you guys have seen the Street Bob in most of the videos recently because I just love that thing, man. And that's what I've been filming a lot with lately, traveling on and stuff. But I pulled the old Sportster out today, and this is obviously not the longest trip, but it's a longer day trip. We're going to be over probably like 120 miles by the end of the day, stopping at different places. You know, we're going to be on the bike most of the day. And I haven't really had a day like this where I've spent the entire day on the Sportster. And because of that, I kind of forgot a lot about the Sportster. Just a lot of different things about the Sportster, the way it makes me feel, the way it handles, the way it rides. And that's one of the things that I kind of started to realize on this ride is like, I forgot a lot of the things about the Sportster because I've still been riding it pretty consistently, at least once a week. But the thing is, I've been riding it mostly like through town, like pop around town, bar hop, cafe hop, run errands, get groceries, different things like that. And I mean, you just don't really get familiar with the bike during that. You know, you're just running through town real quick. You're not really getting like super familiar back into the bike or really getting the experience, the whole riding experience when you're doing that short type of stuff. When you get out on it for like a full day again like this, it brings back a lot of stuff that you kind of forget about this bike. And that's one of the things I'm curious to hear from you guys out there is, you guys out there with multiple bikes, like 2, 3, 4, 5 bikes in the stable, do you ever like start riding one so much that you kind of forget about the others, and you know, you forget about why you liked it, or you forget certain things about that bike, and then when you come back to it, you remember like why you liked it so much, or you remember like, you know, a certain experience that it gave you in the past, and it just kind of makes you want to get back out there on that particular bike more and more. Drop it down in the comments if that has ever happened to anybody out there. But let me know kind of how you navigate those experiences between multiple different bikes, because like I said, there's so much stuff that I just kind of forgot about the Sportster just from riding the Street Bob so long. And some of that stuff too is like little comparison between the Street Bob that you kind of forget about the Sportster as well. And one of the things, to be honest, that I forgot about this bike is just how much I love this thing, man. I say it all the time, like I just love this bike. It's such just a real, you know, raw, visceral Harley experience. The Evolution engine with these Vance and Hines slip-on pipes on it sounds awesome. This bike honestly turns so many heads. And I know it's just a Sportster, of course, but I turn more heads with this bike than my Street Bob, and that's like a bright red color. There's just something I love about this stance of this bike, the look, the sound, just that raw, visceral feel that when I'm not on it for a while, I kind of forget that experience, because the Street Bob, obviously I love that too, but it's just a little bit more refined, it's a little more well balanced and things like that. You don't get some of that raw feel on there, and it's like you hop back on this and you're just like, oh yeah, like then you remember kind of like why you really love this thing. And that's one of the things that I've kind of forgotten about it. Some other things that I kind of forgot about the bike as well, and now these aren't like negatives, just kind of my experience of like just kind of you forget how the bike handles and feels. It's like I think you kind of forget a little bit how the 1200 Evo engine performs. And I'm not saying that's like a good or bad thing, but when you come from the Street Bob, of course, you know, the big 114 engine in there, you forget that, you know, you kind of got to like, you know, you got to work this throttle a little bit to get this thing going a little bit more than the Street Bob, of course. It doesn't quite respond the same way. It's not quite as twitchy, I would say. And at least for me anyway, coming from the Street Bob, you know, you got throttle by wire, big engine. You just kind of forget that you got to work this throttle a little bit more to kind of get this thing going, just because it's a little bit smaller engine, a little less powerful, things like that. So that's one of the other things you kind of get used to when you hop back on this bike. Other things too, things just like comfort and suspension. Like I mentioned before, I just wrapped up an 8-hour trip across the state of PA on my Street Bob, and it was pretty comfortable, I'm not gonna lie. I got that thing hooked up with the LaPera kickflip seat. Of course, it's got the monoshock suspension on there, and I never at any point really felt, you know, much pressure in my hips or my tailbone or anything like that. But now we're getting close to, you know, over 50-75 miles on this trip today, popping around different places. I feel a little bit in that tailbone area. Of course, you know, I've got the upgraded suspension on here, the progressive shocks, the Saddleman seat, but even with that stuff, the Sportster is still going to give you a little discomfort in the hips or in the butt sometimes. Maybe that's just me, who knows. But the comfort is definitely something that I forgot about on this bike. Coming from the Street Bob, you know, it's bigger, it's more powerful. Kind of forgot a little bit how the Sportster, you know, it's nothing you can't navigate. I'm totally fine with it. But when you get out on this thing all day, you know, when you're pushing, you know, close to 7,500 miles, it's gonna wear you out a little bit. I don't care what anybody says. Just kind of the way the suspension is, even if it's upgraded like mine, you know, you're gonna get off this thing and be a little worn out. The next thing I forgot about, I touched on just a little bit earlier, but I forgot about the sound. The Vance & Hines on this Evo engine, they sound great, man. On my Street Bob, I've got the Cobra Neighbor Hater slip-ons on the 114 Milwaukee 8, and I mean, they do their job, you know, they sound okay, they sound good enough. But when you get up to highway speed and traveling on those, the wind is really kind of drowning out the sound of the engine and the exhaust on that, and you almost don't even hear it. When you're rocking an Evo with any type of slip-ons on it, really, you can really hear this thing cranking and working away, that's for sure. And I forgot the noise that this thing puts out. Now, I like that, not a complaint. Another thing I kind of forgot about is just kind of like the mechanical nature, to go along with the sound, of course, just the mechanical nature of the Sportster and the Evo, the way it sounds, the way it shifts. You got all those nice big clunks up and down into gear, whether you're upshifting, downshifted. Now the Street Bob and the Milwaukee 8 do have a little bit of that, but I can tell you it's much, much more of a refined machine. And that would definitely be expected. Newer technology, newer frame, newer all that stuff, newer engine. You're gonna expect it to be just a little bit more kind of practical, a little bit more well refined. You still get some of those sounds and clunks and stuff like that, but not nearly the same on the Evo Sportster that we're on right now. So I'm glad that I made the choice to get out on the Sportster today. Like I said, I knew we were going to be doing like over 100 miles, kind of like all day, popping around place from place, but I'm glad I took it out. You know, I was making my decision. I was like, I don't want to take the Street Bob. I've been on it a lot lately, but I was like, you know, let me get a little bit of a longer full day in on the Sportster. And it really reminds me how much I love this bike, all the funny little like quirks and funny little things about this bike that you come to grow into and you love about it. It's like, there's no reason that you can't take it on any trip, really. But like I said, I've just been kind of riding it around like the town and city for the most part, short stuff like 10, 15-mile jaunts around town. But it really is capable of so much more than that. It's worthy of so much more than that. You know, you don't need a street bob to do whatever you want to do. You don't need a big old touring bike to do whatever you want to do. It's kind of fun to just like get out there and go a little bit farther distance on your Sportster. It really does just kind of like remind you of like all the great things about it. And especially because, you know, it's not around anymore. Harley has switched over to the Revolution Max. No more Evo Sportsters. Plenty floating around out there in the used marketplace, of course, but like I said, I always want to keep this thing because, you know, you just get on this and it just reminds you how much you love the bike, how much you love riding, all those good experiences that come with it. But that's the great thing about having two bikes, of course. If I want to go, you know, rip out on the street bob, fly around on that thing, have a good time on it, I can always choose to do that as well. But like I said, as a little bit of a precursor to some stuff we have coming up, I do plan on stripping this thing down a little bit. I do want to turn it into a little bit more of like a rat rod bobber type bike, cafe racer type thing, and that'll make it even like less enjoyable to get out on these farther trips on, probably, because I'll be all hunched over and stuff like that. But I do think we are getting closer and closer to this beer garden that we're about to go to off of Westchester Pike here. And that means we will start to wrap it up. So like I said, tell me your experience if you ever kind of like forget about one of the bikes you have, or you know, you kind of forget a little bit about what it's like if you've got multiple bikes that you ride and you kind of forget about one and you hop back on it and you kind of like remember why you love it so much, why you love and enjoy the experience of that bike so much. Make sure you let me know down in the comments. I'll definitely be curious to hear if anybody's got kind of that similar thought process or similar experience to me. So of course, if you like anything we got going on here, make sure you go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down there. That's going to wrap this one up for now. As always, make sure you ride safe out there. Make it a good one, guys. It's the Moto John. We'll see you all on down the road. Peace.